And we now like to welcome in the new head coach of his alma mater, the Florida State Seminoles. He is Luke Loucks. And Luke, welcome. How would you describe the last 60 or so days?
It's been great, man. It's been a total whirlwind. I go to sleep every night, and less recently, but definitely the first 30 to 45 days, you go to sleep and you just have 20 to 30 things on your mind that you didn't get to. You're constantly searching for more hours in the day that don't exist. But you try to prioritize. We've had to build a new staff. We've had to put a complete roster together. We got 2 guys coming back from last year's team, which has been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to build a staff of people you believe in and you trust, and to build a roster. And we got probably 2 or 3 more guys to go on our roster to close that out. But we're in a good place. We started workouts last week. We just got off the court a few minutes ago. I wiped the sweat off my face and came up to talk to you. So it's a blessing, man. It's fun to be back in Tallahassee, a place where I'm very comfortable in, a place where my wife was also an athlete. And now we get to introduce this city to our kids and to a lot of new transfers on the roster.
Well, again, it goes to show you how old we're all getting, because I was still doing what I'm doing when you were the point guard on the Florida State team that won the ACC tournament title in 2012. But I'm curious, from your perspective, what is it like coming to college basketball now in its current state after the state that you left when you were done as a player over a decade ago?
Yeah, I think it's definitely different from when I played. There's a financial piece to it that, quite honestly, I'm comfortable with from where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the NBA, and post college, I played a handful of years in Europe, so I do understand the financial piece. And at times, it can feel a little chaotic at this level, but honestly, it's not much different outside of the regulations. Obviously, we're evolving in this landscape of regulating some of this fine, which I think is welcome for a lot of coaches on this level.
Yeah.
But in terms of dealing with the agent, and in terms of dealing with egos, in terms of dealing with players that, quite honestly, make a lot more money than most people in the building, that's what I'm used to. And so you got to build authentic relationships. You still got to set a standard. The players got to understand that there will be accountability no matter how much money you make, because there's a way to do things and a way not to do things. And quite frankly, that leads to winning, and that leads to a good culture, and that leads to a healthy locker room. So, yeah, it's much different than when I played. I got a couple former players on my staff that at times we joke that we missed our calling, by a decade or two. We could have had a little extra coin in our pocket, but yeah, I'm enjoying it, man. And I know the players, they obviously enjoy having a little money in their pocket, but also we try to do a good job here with financial literacy and understanding that this isn't money just to spend, right? It's money to invest, and it's money to hopefully that can be a little long lasting as they transition from college and hopefully get onto the professional ranks.
Luke, I'm curious. I know you haven't coached a game yet, but with that said, how does a day right now as the head coach at Florida State compare to when, you were having a day as the assistant coach for the Sacramento Kings?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I had to get on a few guys about their academics today, which one of my assistants turned to me after my speech, and it was a passionate speech, that you got to handle your business. But one of my assistants turned to me and asked me if I missed the NBA yet. And I said, no, that, this is part of the job, just for the student athletes. And this is what I explained to them. For some, going to class is a hassle. For some people enjoy it. Some people enjoy learning and educating themselves. But in real life, we all have things that are quote unquote a hassle. Do I enjoy fighting with my kids to get them to bed? No, but I still do them, and I still got to do it. And there's going to be a lot of points in your life, both in their basketball career and beyond, where you got to get stuff done, whether or not you like it. It's just part of being a man, part of being a grown up. You got to be a good husband, a good father, etc. And so there are things that you need to check the box and do it with a great attitude and great enthusiasm, just like you do on the court. So it has been a transition for myself and a couple members of our staff that are coming from the NBA. Just there's a different workload that you have to focus on and make sure everyone's doing their job.
Luke, it was announced, probably in the middle of the ACC season that Coach Hamilton would not be returning, during the upcoming season as Florida State's head coach. When did you first think it was a possibility that you could come back and be the head coach of your alma mater?
Yeah, probably right around then. There were some initial questions, just if I would have any interest. And honestly, I didn't have a ton of interest of coaching in college. I was just on a good path in the NBA, and I enjoyed where I was going. I enjoyed who I worked with. I've had a lot of close mentors that have helped me out in my career. That's helped it progress quickly. And to me, if I was ever going to be a head coach, it was going to be in the NBA. And I was just in a good spot, and I thought our family was in a good spot. But the more those conversations started, especially once Coach Hamilton announced that this would be his final year, and he's a guy that helped me get into coaching and has helped me in a lot of different ways, both as a player and as a coach. Once those conversations started, more and more, I look at everything. You have basically your emotional side and your family side, and then you have your career side, and you try as best as you can to mesh those two things, which always doesn't work out as nice as we would like it to. And everyone goes through that in some level in their career and their personal life. And so my wife and I sat down, we prayed about it, we thought about it, and this is before we even interviewed. Is this something that we want to pursue? And the more we thought about it and prayed about it and talked about it, on the emotional side, it's obviously a place where we're familiar with, where we have built-in relationships and community. My wife was a swimmer at Florida State. A lot of her family's in Florida. All of my family's in Florida. And since leaving Florida State, I've lived in, I think, 5 different countries playing professionally, 4 different states coaching. So we've been all over the place, but we've never come back other than vacation. So on the personal and emotional side, it definitely checked a lot of the boxes with a young family and 3 young kids. And then the career side, like I said, I hope, and I think most coaches, they get into this to eventually become a head coach, and everything you do is to be a great assistant and support your head coach, but also you're learning that one day you'll be ready to get to that point and succeed. So it's something I wanted to do, is be a head coach. And to be honest, the more I thought about career wise, there's a couple things I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about helping players get better and maximize whatever their potential is. And then the second part of it, excuse me, I really enjoy working with people I can learn from. And it doesn't matter what level. I've always tried to learn something from even if personalities clash, and there's always a chance in this profession and in any profession to learn. And the more I thought about it, there was a lot of good people who I felt like I could form a staff and we could all learn from each other, and it would be beneficial. You can definitely help players in college reach a professional rank, and even if they don't reach the professional rank, maximize whatever talent they are through player development, through your systems, through everything you set up, and compete at the highest level. And then to get to put a staff together that I can learn from every day and enjoy doing this. I just felt like all that came together. I was like, okay, let's dive into this process. And obviously it went pretty well so far.
Yeah, you made some interesting points right there about your family and several references during that dialogue with your family. I remember talking to Kevin Young last year at this time, and he, told me that one of the things that attracted him to college basketball was there's a little bit less travel. You're not playing 82 nights. You might be playing half that if you're lucky. Is coaching college basketball from where you were at in the NBA a better lifestyle for you with a young family than coaching in the NBA?
It's hard for me to comment because I haven't been through a full season yet, but I have talked with KY. KY and I actually worked together in Phoenix for a quick, it was like 8 or 9 months before I went to Sacramento. But I know Kevin and his family very well. Our wives know each other. I do think there's an aspect just from logistics in the NBA. You play, if you're a decent team, you're going to play over 100 games in a year between preseason, between regular season, between postseason. And that's in 7 months. And it doesn't matter how you slice it, you're going to be on a plane half the month, and you're going to be away from your kids. You're not going to be able to tuck them in. You're not going to be able to wake them up. And now I also understand, as a head coach in college and a coach anywhere at any level, there is a workload that no matter where you coach and what league you coach in, you got to work and you got to grind at it. And that comes with the nature of the business. But the difference is I can be on the phone and I hang up the phone and my kids are sitting there instead of me being in Salt Lake City or Brooklyn or Miami. Right. And so I do think just from that perspective, it is a little bit healthier to coach in college for a young family. And I also think that, and not to say the NBA lifestyle is terrible, because it's not, and you can make it work any way you want to. I do think the college atmosphere, just like right now, my kids are at the FSU women's soccer kids camp. Right. And that's something it's just hard to find, in Sacramento. Yeah. And, next week they're going to go do a volleyball camp. And that community, especially with my wife and myself, having spent a lot of years in Tallahassee, it's just a good environment for kids to grow up in, that you can kind of find in the NBA, but it's just a little bit easier and more healthy in this atmosphere.
What are your impressions of the roster that you put together?
Yeah, so far there's a few things, and it's similar to my staff. I do, and I should care strongly about a character and IQ of an individual. So I think we've done a heck of a job bringing in the right kind of kids that are going to show up every day with a great attitude, and they're willing to get pushed, and they're willing to push each other, and they're willing to work, which I think is most important as you try to build a team and build a culture that will lead to championships. So I'm really pleased with that so far. And then there is a style of play that, especially coming from the NBA, and everyone, likes to compare NBA to college, but there is just analytically, if you dive in, there's certain things that I care about that I think are the most efficient ways to play basketball, no matter what stage, what level, I want to play fast. I want to shoot a lot of threes. I want offensive rebound. And I want to have a certain level of tenacity defensively that I feel like so far we've done a really good job putting that together with the resources we have.
Well, it's interesting because you're talking about the way that you want to play philosophically, and you have a brand new team, and most programs now moving forward in college basketball are going to have several new pieces in this climate. How much more important is the summer and installing your terminology and your philosophies than maybe summer months and summer workouts were when you were playing?
It's huge. It's huge. It's 1,000% invaluable. It's a way to get ahead. And most people, like you just said, think of it as a team time, which part of it is. I also care greatly, going back to my background, of the player development side and the weight room side, because honestly, great teams got to come together, and there has to be a selflessness and a togetherness and a connectivity to win at the highest level. But you also got to have some guys that can play at a high level. Yeah. And one of the things that I care about is helping these guys progress on their individual nature of improvement. And so what this summer allows is, both on an individual level of player development and as a team level of team development and competitive development, you get both of those aspects to get your hands on guys and help them prove individually, and also help the team improve collectively. And like you said, just getting to training camp with a base level foundation of what we want to do defensively. What are our values? What are our standards? How do we work? What's the schedule look like? I think you're setting yourself up to be in a better spot, 4 months from now when we get going.
Well, you mentioned the word schedule there. I'm not referring to your practice schedule, but I am curious about your non-conference schedule. It's obviously a big part of what could bring the ACC back nationally. I know that you're going to play Florida, as you do every year. I know you have a game in the ACC-SEC Challenge. Other than those two games, are there any updates of significance for the Seminoles in November and December?
Yeah, so one of the things, and I'll say this, John, I'm not a big breaking news guy, but I know you are, and I love to give you some nuggets here and there. One of the things, when I got the job, again, coming from the NBA, even on an off night, you're playing against all-stars. And so I know there's a give and take with the schedule. You gotta schedule some winnable games. But I told our staff, and they looked at me like I had four heads. I told our staff from day one, and maybe it's just immaturity, maybe it's me being naive to this landscape, is I want to play the best teams. And if we get beat, we get beat. But in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And at minimum, you have a barometer for where you need to go and how much space is in between you and the best teams in the country. So one of the things I brought to the staff, and again, they looked at me like I was nuts, is I wanted to play every team in the Final Four. And because I went to the Final Four, and now I can say that we're close. I think one of the teams is going to be an exhibition game, but we're close to getting those contracts done to at least measure ourselves. And one will be an exhibition game, and the other three, obviously, like you said, Duke and Florida are built in, and the other one will play regular season at a neutral and neutral back. So from that aspect, I think we're in a pretty good place. Obviously, the SEC Challenge, we're waiting on that to see who play there. And we're close to one more high major game that will really test us. And I want to be tested. I want our guys to feel tested because I do think the ACC is going to be a lot better this year. Mm-hmm. And walking into the ACC without really, really challenging yourself, to me, is just unwise. And so from that aspect, I think we're in a pretty good place. We are going to play a couple of neutral site games that I'm really excited about. And hopefully those contracts will be done this week, and then you'll know.
Okay, well, who is the exhibition against, Purdue or Houston? Excuse me, not Purdue or Houston. Not Purdue or Houston. Who's the exhibition against, Auburn or Houston?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It should. I'm hoping. I literally talked to the AD about it yesterday. I'm hoping that the contract is done within the next few days. I know we're waiting on a few little legal terms. Okay. And I've been instructed to not say anything to any media before those contracts are done, because legally, you don't want to get in a position where you're saying something that's not true. So
fair enough. I have Purdue on my mind because I have Purdue as my preseason number 1 next year, but obviously Auburn. Wow. Yeah, so Auburn and Houston though are
Painter's doing a great job, man. He's honestly coming to college, there's a lot of good coaching, man. The more I dive into some of these playbooks, I've been really impressed.
Yeah, well, you obviously referenced good coaching, and good coaching is something that you had throughout your tenure in college, and you are going to now be the man who replaces J. Leonard Hamilton at Florida State, a Hall of Fame coach in his own right. For you personally, for somebody who played for him and then leaned on him as you transition into a coaching career, what does Coach Hamilton mean to Luke Loucks?
Yeah, you said he's a Hall of Fame coach, and to me, a Hall of Fame person. He cares deeply about his players and the men they become, and that's something that I hope to fulfill in my duty as head coach. Obviously, I care about wins and losses because that's what our livelihood is based on. Mm-hmm. But I also care deeply about pouring into these young men and helping them build a life, right? And that ball is going to stop bouncing sometime in the next 10 to 15 years if they're very, very fortunate to play that long. And they got to be able to operate the rest of their life. They have to, again, be good husbands, good fathers, good leaders in the community, know how to look people in the eyes, know how to carry a level of respect for those around them, and get that respect in return. And that's something that Coach Hamilton poured into our teams. And we have, just on our team alone, not only, a lot of successful professional basketball players, but we have a lot of successful coaches. We got an assistant coach running player development of the Brooklyn Nets. We have the GM of the Charlotte Hornets, obviously myself as a head, and this is just from one small team. Several of them still playing professionally. So I think that he's obviously poured into us on a basketball wise so we can succeed on the court. But also really care about us as individuals and know our wives' names and our kids' names. And that's so important for building something that's longer lasting than just a ball bouncing. So he's I told Coach Hamilton he's welcome anytime to come, pour back into our team. And he's popped in, and he always brings a smile on his face. I think he's got a lot of energy to burn now that he's not coaching. But he's always welcome here in Tallahassee and in our gym.
No, he's like you said, he's a Hall of Fame human being. I'm curious though, beyond basketball, what are the biggest things that you took from Leonard Hamilton that you apply to life, not basketball, but life?
Yeah, I think the biggest things, and he knows my personality almost as well as I know myself. I'm very impatient at times, and I want things to get done right, like immediately. And especially at this level, both on the court and off the court, you just have to have a level of patience and guidance and maturity with the guys as you help them, again, become young men. So that's one of the first things he told me is he said, Luke, you're a lot like me. You want things done. You want it done right now. And you will have the power to get some of that done, and other things done. You just you got to be patient. You got to let it build. And there's going to be curveballs that hit you that you don't see coming, which they have. And you just got to figure it out. And you got to build a great staff around you that you trust and you trust will get things done without it getting to your plate. But once it gets to your plate, you got to have a team that can handle those things. So he's been a huge resource. Again, he's a mentor of mine and will continue to be a resource to not only me, but our whole staff.
Well, Luke, since you said you're impatient, that brings me to my final question. I know that there's still a lot of work to get through with the off-season workouts and the practices and learning your personnel, but what are the biggest things you want to accomplish in year one?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost thing is when you build what I call a championship culture, you have to set a standard that it's an everyday, we're going to improve and we're going to create a competitive environment. And I think that that only happens when you have a team full of guys that love to compete and love to sweat and love to challenge each other, but that are also that they're connected, right? And my whole theme, both with our staff, with the university, and with the team, is connected. And we're going to be connected on the court. We're going to be connected off the court. But we're going to create an environment where we can push each other so that once the ball gets tipped up, we're all as a unit, as one, going against the opponent at the highest level possible because we're used to competing every day. So in that aspect is and going in terms of wins and losses, I'm not going to give you a number, but what I will say, and until I'm not the head coach here, every single year my goal is to win a championship. And daily, you have to work on the things that lead to those championships. You can't just talk about a championship. It's a process, right? And we're not worried about the results. But until I'm not here, we're going after championships. And that's just how I was raised from my father and my parents. If you're going to go after something, you go after it. And my players are going to feel that. And they're also going to feel the work and the intensity and the environment that leads to those results.
Luke Loucks, not the first point guard who became a head coach, but maybe the latest one to go back to his alma mater. We appreciate a couple of minutes. Congratulations on the job. And as always, look forward to staying connected along the way.
Thanks, John.
You got it. That's Florida State head coach Luke Loucks. I'm John Rothstein. We'll be back after this.